Yes, hello and welcome to all our West Australian football fans for today's edition of Around the WAFL. We are hot off the heels of a tense and exciting round 5 of the 2023 WAFL season. Now, the old saying in business is the show must go on. We've had a late team change. Regular co-host Taylor Cowper is not in today. Of course, he's been pretty ill over the last 24 hours, so we do wish him all the best. And we hope to see him back here on Thursday to preview round 6. But we have a more than suitable fill-in. Of course, he's one of our fabulous WAFL commentators every weekend across the season. I'm talking, of course, about Luke Worthington, who's made the travel back from south of the river in Mandurah to join us here today. Luke, welcome.
Oh, hello, Paul. And yeah, what a trip down to Mandurah it was. I've been down there twice now. In 3 years of commentary for the WAFL, I've been down there twice. Easily one of my favourite weekends of the season, despite the drive going down there. It's so much fun, such a good view from the commentary box, such passionate fans, and always a good time going down there. And great to see you as well. I don't think we've spoken face to face since the Resi's Grand Final last year, which was also a great day.
It certainly was over there at Leederville Oval. Time flies, don't it? But and so is this season so far. 5 rounds have gone, and already, Luke, we're seeing about 6 or 7 teams that can contend for a spot in the 5. What a season it's been so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So much fun. 3 games decided by 12 points on Saturday, other than the one blowout with West Coast, which we can get into later, and then obviously a bit of a bigger margin on Sunday as well. But that was after Swan Districts got up quite considerably in the early stages of the game. So yeah, it just keeps happening, and you had a good game yourself too.
We'll get into that in just a little bit. Of course, you can like us on our socials. We've got Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Give us a big thumbs up. We really appreciate it. Now, before we go to our 5 games, Luke, and of course our Player of the Year votes, a big story from round 5 was from the Perth Demons, Jaden Hunter. He's 21 years of age, and it was a great comeback against the West Coast Eagles. He picked up his form in the reserves at the start of the season and then was selected to play against the Eagles, kicked 4 goals, and what a journey it's been, I have to say. Overlooked in the 2020 draft, had a massive ACL injury 13 months ago. He's back fighting fit, and what a story. What a comeback story he fulfilled on the weekend.
Yeah, so Jaden Hunter, absolutely the story of the weekend. Like you said, really highly rated key defender coming up. He rucked a bit at Colts level as well when they had that need back earlier in his career. Played a game on marking Logan McDonald rather in the 2020 All-Star game for all the draft picks. And Logan McDonald's a guy who kicked a goal against Collingwood on Sunday. So he's coming from pretty good stocks and he's played some really good competitive footy. And then, that ACL rupture in 2021, just devastating. Didn't play a game of footy for 13 months. Came back into the reserves earlier in the season. In 3 games, he's the leading goal kicker in the reserves. He's 12 goals, 2 in the WAFL reserves. The next 13 players have played 4 or 5 games, and he still leads the goal kicking. Has less set shots than a lot of them because he's 12 goals too. So he's not missing. He barely missed on the weekend, and really good, handy one to come back into the side for Perth.
We'll talk about him more and Perth's game a little bit later on. And it goes to show that, there is always a lot of feel-good stories around the state leagues, particularly here in the WAFL, and it doesn't get a lot of recognition all around the country. But, you do love a good comeback story, especially for a young kid that's got still many years of untapped potential left, and to see him excel on the field once again, kick 4 goals against the Eagles, simply fantastic. This is our Round 5 review. Paul Persick and Luke Worthington, thanks to BackChat. You can listen to us on wherever you get your podcasts and on the BackChat YouTube channel. Well, let's kick it off, Luke, with the game at Revo Fitness Stadium. My golly, at quarter time, many were thinking, okay, East Perth are going to get the job done, but these are the Claremont Tigers. Never write them off, especially at home. What a win by 7 points.
Yeah, so they absolutely flew out of the gates, East Perth. They kicked 5 straight. That Schumacher goal from 52 metres on the run. He has one of just a special, unique kicking action that I love to see. Then that was followed up by Scott Jones, soccers it karate kicks it out of the air in the ruck and sends it into the hot spot. Schumacher kicks another one around the body. And then only in time on, essentially, in the second term, to Claremont go and score their first goal. And then Bailey Rogers just completely takes over the game, him and Jai Bolton. Rogers goes on to kick 3. It was his third goal that actually got Claremont in front, and then I don't think they lost it from there. Ben Elliott's goal off the stoppage completely sealing it. East Perth led every quarter except for full time,
Yeah.
obviously. The one that mattered, and just a really, really even WAFL stat line. I think the difference in tackles and disposals and hitouts were very close, especially compared to a few of the other games that happened over the weekend. Bailey Rogers, just a terrific, impactful stat line with 19 disposals, 4 marks, a tackle, and then kicking 3 goals. And Jai Bolton as well, just contributing to that Rolls Royce of a midfield they have down there at Claremont with 32 touches, 6 marks, couple of tackles, few inside 50s, and a goal. So not a bad afternoon's work from them.
No, not at all. You talked about Jai Bolton. He started in defence and, really struggled to blanket that East Perth forward line in that first quarter, but really came to life in that second quarter. 32 touches and 6 marks goes to show how versatile he can be. For East Perth, 5 goals up at quarter time, then only another a 7 for the game when Claremont absolutely charged back. They had 5 less inside 50s. It really boggles the mind to think what went wrong for East Perth in that game because they were in control at quarter time. They used the ball so well. Van Diemen, the young kid who's got great potential. Schumacher, like you said, with that big goal from outside 50. Mitch Crowden, who had a great first half. And also Tom North, who finished up with 35 possessions to maintain his strong start to the season. Yeah, it was a real blip on the radar for East Perth, and I'd expect them to bounce back against South Fremantle. Judging by their start this season, they are a much better side than what they can deliver in that second half against Claremont. Because you're looking after half time, 6 goals to 9 in that second half. They fell apart. And I reckon Ross McQueen, the coach of East Perth, will put them through a hard week.
Yeah, sure. I guess at some point it's such is playing the top team in the competition at the moment when you're a team that's currently on the fringe of the 5. I think they just got overran by that midfield despite such classiness at the beginning of the game, and it was that experience with those guys in the Claremont midfield. You just see the switch flick after a couple of those Bailey Rogers goals, and it never really looked like they were going to let them back in it. It did get close at one point, but I kind of sat there with the feeling that that they were definitely going to hold on. But
it was a bit of uh-oh.
They're a very good team, Claremont. So I wouldn't hold too much against West Perth. Obviously, they'll be shattered and like you said, be put through a hard week at training. They'll be absolutely shattered with that. But they're a team that can bounce back. I think they really showed what they were made of to score 12 goals against Claremont as well.
Yeah, they certainly were. Of course, they'll have a big game against South Fremantle this weekend at Leederville Oval. What about this one? Next game at the WACA ground. Really tense throughout, even though it was a low-scoring game. West Perth and East Fremantle, they've had their fair share of cracking contests over the last 3 years. West Perth started off strongly, held East Fremantle goalless, and then it was starting to plod along. It wasn't a pretty game at parts, but sometimes you've got to win ugly to get the 4 points. And the likes of Luke Meadows and Ben Johnson, who are holding strong for the Falcons. In comes Luke English to put the Sharks back into the game with 2 quick goals. And then that last quarter was all about who was going to finish off strongly, and it was West Perth, 15-point winners.
Yeah, West Perth is the reigning premiers. Your team, you would have had some good fun calling that game, Paul. I bet. Really slippery footy, just all around Perth on Saturday. Little bit more overcast and not so slippery in Mandurah on Sunday. So I think a theme of a couple of the games was that slippery footy and it just being a little bit hard to get going. But Paul, you were there and you saw it. The top team got the job done.
Well, they needed a big win, especially after the loss to Subiaco, and when you consider that
the
they
reigning
were
premiers,
missing Aaron Black,
not the top team.
Reigning premiers of the competition, and considering they were missing Aaron Black, who's still battling hamstring soreness, but should return in the game against Perth in round 6. But I want to praise Luke Meadows. His finishing, the way he got West Perth out of the trough and sealed the game with his class in midfield and in attack. No wonder he's the reigning Simpson medalist from the grand final. He can get the job done under high pressure, especially when the game is still in the balance at any end of the ground. Just spectacular. But credit to East Fremantle, even though they lost their way, in the final few minutes of that game, they played some really good football in that last quarter. That was the only quarter when East Fremantle really played competitive football. But like East Perth, East Fremantle are a much better side, especially when you have Milan Murdoch, Luke English seeing a lot of the footy, and also
Yep.
Max Murphy down back. He was also a key in defence. The problem is that they're going to be missing Harrison Marsh because he suffered an injury early in the game and took no further part after quarter time. Sam Rotham, meanwhile, also pulled out with injury. He suffered an injury to his ribs, and he looks likely to not be back until after the state game break. So that could be a blow for both teams heading into next week. What about this one, Luke? As we mentioned earlier, Jaden Hunter dominated up forward for Perth against the West Coast Eagles. A lot of people are going to be talking about the Eagles' WAFL side, a lot of questions to be asked about their performance, but not a lot of words are being said about Perth. They are a much more competitive side than what people seem to think.
Yeah, Paul, I obviously was listening to your preview podcast of the weekend last week. You said, I think Perth will get it done, just not by 100 points. You're correct.
Yeah, it was 97 points at the end. But no, we were talking about as well, Jaden Hunter, 4 goals. Harry
absolutely.
Quartermain joined in the party with 4 goals as well. And I like the work of Charlie Thompson, Luke, the key midfielder coming over from Victoria. He's showing his flair at WAFL level.
Yeah, absolutely. They were such a dominant side on Saturday, and it was kind of training drill stuff from the start. But absolutely not to discredit the big performances. Regan Clark, Taylor Matthew, Jai Clark, they all were absolutely terrific in that game. But the weekend or the day belonged to
Hunter.
Jaden Hunter. Not to take away the fact as well that that Harry Quartermain also had 4 goals in that game. So really really strong showing from them, and they just ran over the top of West Coast. Josh Brown on the other side though for West Coast put in a good effort as always.
Yeah, Josh Brown, he continues to get talked about very highly over there at West Coast. I mean, considering that the AFL side has got a lot of injuries, I reckon he could be one of those players on the future radar for West Coast to maybe get an AFL game. I mean, he uses the ball so well, sees plenty of it, and contributes a lot of forward entries to the Eagles. Also, Ethan Hansen was also a big positive as well, 26 touches and also 9 marks. But, there'll always be the inevitable questions about West Coast. But I want to ask a question about Perth. Peter German, first win on the board, big win, and we've seen some competitive showings over the first 5 weeks. Do you expect Perth to get at least a couple more wins before season's out?
Well, let's have a look at who they've got coming up then, Paul. So this weekend they've got West Perth. I'd say no. So 0-1. Then they move on to South Fremantle. Depends how they go over the next couple of weeks. So 50-50 on that one. They then play Claremont at home. I think Claremont will get the job done on them there. And then moving on to Swan Districts, which not as tough as Claremont, but I think maybe 1-4 might be there. 1-3 might be their ceiling.
1-3 won't be a bad record. It won't be a bad record considering the side that they.
But that's the ceiling. I'm saying, which means anything worse than that is 0-4. So it's pretty fine margin with those two things.
No, it certainly is. I reckon the one against South Fremantle can be a winnable one, especially with what South Fremantle are going through after the salary cap breach, after their proverbial was absolutely shook. But it's going to be another tough month ahead for Perth to see what they can do. But having said that, it is a long-term rebuild for the Demons. Under a new coach, under new playing personnel, so it's going to be a long, long road ahead over there at Mineral Resources Park. Now we go to our fourth game. No, hopefully. We go to our 4th game over at Leederville Oval. Luke, Subiaco and South Fremantle. While it was hard, it was tight for 3 quarters. Subiaco, cool heads prevailed. They've got experience. They've got youth that are exuberant side and are ready to contend for a premiership again, especially when you have that deadly ruck of Zach Clark. Again, dominant in the centre, 38 hitouts.
Yep, 38 hitouts for Zach Clark. Now, Solomon James didn't actually do too badly against that AFL ruckman. He had 41 hitouts of his own. He looked all right from the footage that I saw of that game. But just a brilliant deadlocked game. Really, I think the effects of the slippery footy that I was talking about earlier really showed in that game at Leederville Oval, like completely deadlocked at the stoppage between both teams early, and those big-bodied Subiaco midfielders, as well as the presence of Zach Clark in the ruck, allowed them to kind of not slide over the line, but definitely get the job done in such a tough game like that. Subiaco 75 tackles in that game, and South with the late goal to avoid being scoreless in the first term. They're going to need to be starting a lot stronger against East Perth this
Yes.
Saturday, you would think, who came flying out of the gates against
Absolutely.
Claremont.
Absolutely. I mean, especially when you look at the final analysis of that game, out tackled by Subiaco by 31. That's how strong Subiaco be around the ball
Yep.
with their tackling presence. And
Yep.
when they come up with sides against the likes of West Perth and Claremont a second time this season, I reckon that could fall in Subiaco's favour. They countered West Perth's tackling prowess in their win at Joondalup. They did it again the previous week against Claremont. So watch out for that fiery midfield. They are a very good tackling side.
Really
and I also
good,
love
tough
the work.
midfield. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I also like the work of Ryan Borchett up forward. 3 goals in a strong burst. The Kalgoorlie native, he's coming into his own out there at full forward.
Yeah, him and Sokol were both bursting through the 50, taking those leads, 5 goals scored between them. So, you get the midfield job done, but as soon as it's inside 50, you've got those two big bodies to worry about down there. Both Borchett especially super athletic. So yeah, ones to watch out. And Subiaco are on their way back up to a mainstay in the 5, I think.
Yeah, I'd have to say, I mean, after the season they had last year, a real slip down the ladder, it is good to see that Subiaco, the side that has been dominant over the last decade and a half, back on top. Meanwhile, South Fremantle, that even though they lost, still a lot of positives to be taken out of that game. Glenn Byron and Toby McQuilkin down in defence was just fantastic. But also, it was good to see Matty Parker back, the former Richmond player, back in the league side.
Yeah, great to see Matty Parker back. Played a really good game for them on his return, and also not to take anything away from Archie and Gallucci as well. They actually their string of goals in a row actually put them in front at one point of the game, but they just unfortunately couldn't capitalise. Going back to that chat about the midfield that we were having earlier, the game also opened up a lot more in the later stages of the game. I reckon at least 70% of the goals, just completely off the top of my head, didn't write that one down, but about 70% of the goals I reckon came in the last probably 35 minutes or so of the game. So lots to look forward to with those teams. Really low scoring contests, but one of the good true footy matches of the round.
Yeah, real gritty footy it was over there in slippery conditions. And of course, the last game of the round, of course, you were at that one all over it over there at Mid Lane Group Stadium, as you always are with all the WAFL matches. Peel Thunder, easy victors over Swan Districts, but it was a very slow start for the Peel Thunder side. They only just clicked into gear in the second quarter. Yeah, there's a lot to like about this Thunder side.
So much to like about that was a really fun game to go to. The Peel midfield completely overran Swan Districts. Swan Districts ended up moving Toby Watson into the middle to try and slow them down in the late stages of the game. That didn't really work. They were trying everything that they could to try and slow down those Dockers boys. Will Brodie was just terrific. Really hard Fremantle midfield for him to get into. So a super elite player to be playing down in the WAFL, who would be AFL ready in a lot of, not AFL ready, here's AFL ready, but in the AFL right now in a lot of sides in the competition that don't have such a stacked inside midfield like Fremantle. That game was the perfect matchup for a comeback win from Peel Thunder, because the Swans are maybe the second best first quarter team in the WAFL, and then they're bottom 2 or 3 in finishing the game. Peel are the exact opposite. They're terrible in first quarters, and they're the second best finishers in the league. It's exactly what happened.
Nice.
Swan District started out strong, and Peel came and completely ran over the top of them. I don't know where that Swan District side that I saw in the first quarter with my own eyes, who kicked 5 in a row, I think it was, against that Peel Thunder midfield and
5
that Peel
straight.
Thunder defense. 5 straight, yep. I don't know where they went off to after such a good performance there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that might just be the nature of this young side in their first season under this coach. They've done it before as well. They led by 19 points against West Perth earlier in the year in round 3. They led by 10 points in round 1, lost both of those games. They got ahead of East Fremantle the last time I called one of their games, only by a point. They still managed
Yeah.
to get themselves back in the game and then lose it again. So they're an exciting team to watch if you were to tune into any game for the weekend, because it's going to be a lot of twists and turns, whatever's going on in one of those Swan Districts games.
I think they're a bit hard to read this year, to be honest, because they've got such great players. I mean, when you look at their forward supply, Jesse Palmer, who's always around the goals, Christopher Jones, who's valuable tall timber, and in the midfield, Jesse Turner, 33 possessions. He continues to see a lot of the footy. Brandon Urseg, who's a massive pillar in defence. He was held very, very well by the Peel Thunder forward line.
He
Only like
was,
3
yeah.
marks
He was,
in
yeah.
that game. And in the ruck, Jesse Glass, McClasker, and Nathan Blakely outclassed in the ruck. Even under Andrew Prune, it's a new coach. They're still in the gelling process, but they should have won at least 2 or 3 games. I mean, when you look at their win last week against South Fremantle at Fremantle Oval, they showed their class under pressure. They knew how to get the job done, and they had the players playing their roles in the right areas. It was all over the place after quarter time. So for Swans,
Yeah.
it'll be another tough week for them because they have got Subiaco over at Leader Below. In fact, my apologies, Claremont over at Steel Blue Oval. I'm going to be at that game, so I'll be keeping my eye on the Swans very closely.
Yep. So hopefully they can stay consistent. And yeah, they're an interesting side. They've got 3 players on their field that can do rucking duties for them. Glass McCasker, Blakely, and Chris Jones. They've got 3 ruck-sized players running around there. So much height up and down the ground. They were using Glass McCasker in the forward pocket, back up ruck. So heaps of flexibility. One thing that they would benefit from soon, stating the obvious, is Sam Fisher returning back from his hamstring. That's a big bolster to the midfield, not having Jesse Turner do so much of the heavy lifting in terms of getting the football in the midfield and getting the clearances. If they can have another player of that caliber in there doing that.
No, you're absolutely spot on. I think Sam Fisher, he adds a lot of extra pace to that Swan District's midfield. You're absolutely spot on. This is our Round 5 review here on Around the Waffle. Luke Worthington alongside Paul Persick. Thanks to BackChat. You can listen to us on wherever you get your podcast and on the BackChat YouTube channel. Okay, time for the votes. Casting of votes for the Around the Waffle Player of the Year. Of course, at the end of round 20, the player with the most votes will be adjudged the Player of the Year for 2023. 1 vote goes to Ben Hancock of Peel Thunder. Fantastic from midfield, provided plenty of supply, 9 inside 50s, and gets a nice round of applause from Worthy.
I forgot to mention him. I spoke all about Will Brodie and completely forgot to mention Ben Hancock. He came off with a blood rule.
Yes.
And then played twice, I think. He came back out, had it happen again, came back off, played the rest of the game with tape around his head, and had 33 disposals. So a heroic performance from him.
No, it was fantastic. I will agree with you on that. 2 votes, Harry Quartermain of Perth. 4 goals, just outstanding. And of course, the first Demon to pick up votes in 2023. Ryan Borshed of Subiaco. He takes 3 votes, 3 goals, especially in that burst in the last quarter. Kept a cool head inside 50 and got the Lions back into the contest. 4 votes goes to Luke Meadows of West Perth. Class finish in the final quarter when the game was in the balance. 2 vital goals, 24 disposals and 6 marks. And the Around the Waffle top gun of round 5, the 5 votes goes to Claremont's Jai Bolton. I mean, his start in defence and moving into the midfield to keep the Tigers back in the contest was just outstanding. I mean, he ain't a dual Sandover medalist and a premiership player for nothing. He is all-star, Jai Bolton. Yep. A fantastic game.
Yeah, absolutely. Him and Rogers, like I said earlier, took over that game completely. Such a strong midfield and such a strong presence around the ground when they get going. It was awesome watching Claremont. That was I think that game was my favourite game to watch of the weekend, and then the Subi game, like I mentioned earlier, I really like that for the defensive battle.
That was fantastic. Well done to Jai Bolton, who gets the Top Gun gong of round 5. And we'll go to the leaderboard after 5 rounds. We have joint leaders after 5 rounds of footy. Tom North of East Perth and Jai Bolton of Claremont. Then in equal second on 5 votes each is Milan Murdoch of East Fremantle, Ben Sokol of Subiaco, Shane Nelson of West Perth and Jarvis Pena of Swan Districts. On 4 is Luke Meadows of West Perth, Zach Clark of Subiaco, Will Brodie, Jack Buller and Colton Tholstrup. And then 3, Ryan Borchett, Carl Warner and Tyler Keitel. On 2, Harry Quartermain, Cody Leggett and Jimmy Miller. And on a single vote, Ben Hancock, Chad Pearson and Aidan Clark. That is the leaderboard after 5 rounds. And that just about takes us out from our round 5 review edition of Around the Waffle. Luke, a big thanks for helping out on short notice today. We really appreciate you coming on the show, and all the best at Leaderville Oval, the East Perth South Fremantle game. You'll be on the call for that one. That's going to be an absolute beauty.
Can't wait to see that one. Really exciting time for both of those teams on the edge of the 5. Congratulations on all that you're doing with Around the Waffle. It was great to be called up today. Had some big shoes to fill in from your other co-host Taylor, who I've listened to obviously when first time caller, long time listener. So congrats on what you guys are doing, and it was great to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Really appreciate it. We wish you all the very best. And we thank you, our listeners and our viewers, for tuning in, as always, to Around the Waffle. Thanks to the guys from BackChat. You can like us on our socials, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you could also watch us on the BackChat YouTube channel. Thursday, we have another big show. Hopefully, Taylor Cowper will be returning to preview round 6. It's another big round of WAFL action. We look forward to your company then on Around the Waffle.